Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Civilians bear brunt as Pakistan's security challenges intensify amid regional strain. Anti-Pakistan anger rises in POJK. Joint Awami Action Committee announces massive shutdown. And Indian Army foils infiltration bid along LOC in Jammu and Kashmir, neutralizes Lashkar terrorists. Pakistan's worsening internal security crisis is once again under global scrutiny after back-to-back deadly attacks rocked the country's northwestern region. From a devastating market blast in Sarai Naurang to a coordinated terrorist attack on a police checkpoint in Bannu, the incidents have exposed Islamabad's deepening inability to contain terrorism within its borders. As civilian casualties rise and tensions with Afghanistan escalate, questions are growing over Pakistan's long-standing security policies and the terrorist networks that continue to destabilize the region. Pakistan's security situation continues to deteriorate amid a renewed surge in terrorist violence, with civilians once again paying the heaviest price. In the latest incident, a powerful explosion ripped through the crowded Naurang Bazaar in Sarai Naurang in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, killing at least 10 people and injuring dozens more. The blast triggered panic across the busy marketplace as rescue teams rushed victims to nearby hospitals. Visuals from the site shows destroyed shops, scattered debris and damaged vehicles, highlighting the intensity of the explosion.
دلته یو ملګری سره ودرېدله 2-3 منټه هغه موږ چې روانېدلو بیا دماکه وسله ما دا وویل چې یاره دا خو لکه چې پاس بجلی تارو ډاز وکړه که نه ما لاندې موټرسایکل ړنګ څه ما ترپ کړه پله خو چې بیا زه موټرسایکل ته بیا واپس رانه دغه لوګي لګیا و خو ما خلکو ته وکتل خلک ډېر چوک خوږ وله چوک چرنګه و چوک چرنګه چوک منې هغه لګیا وله او وانګیلي لګیا و وی لګیا و ما خپل موټرسایکل بیا روان که خو چې ما جان ته حالات ته وکتل شاته بیا ما نه وینې روانې.
The blast came just days after another major terrorist attack in neighboring Bannu district, where a suicide bomber rammed an explosives-laden vehicle into a police checkpoint before armed terrorists stormed the area and opened fire. The coordinated assault killed at least 15 police personnel and reduced the checkpoint to rubble. The attack was claimed by Ittihad-ul-Mujahideen Pakistan, a terrorist alliance linked to the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP. The back-to-back attacks have raised fresh concerns over the growing strength of extremist groups operating inside Pakistan.
بس دا سره ورور چې دا حادثه شو خو سنو 10 زخمیان راغلي دي یو ډېډ باډي راغلي ده او کم از کم دا نو ډېډ باډي په نوران خدای چې وجستاري مکالکه او حالت بس دا سری چې ته خپل وینه او زخمیان یا نو 10 ور پیراسل یو ډېډ باډي اپ مو راغلي ده دا تازه صورتحال دی.
The violence has further strained already tense relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Islamabad has blamed Afghanistan-based terrorist groups for the attacks, while the Afghan Taliban has rejected the allegations, calling militancy inside Pakistan an internal issue. Analysts say Pakistan's worsening security crisis reflects decades of policies that allowed extremist groups to grow and operate across the region. Many of these networks, once seen as strategic assets, are now turning against the Pakistani state itself. The attacks also come as Pakistan faces deep political instability, economic pressure, and rising unrest in conflict-hit provinces like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. Despite repeated military operations, terrorist violence in Pakistan has continued to rise since the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. Critics argue that Pakistan's long-standing distinction between good and bad terrorists has repeatedly backfired, leaving civilians trapped in an endless cycle of violence.
As long as you had good militants versus bad militants, you created infrastructure for somebody who, given your instructions, was creating violence and mayhem elsewhere. Today, the same people actually have turned against you. What Pakistan needs to do is to detoxify its entire polity. It has to take out religion from its politics, and it has to start from the top. You see, if you look at it, institutionalization of fundamentalism in Pakistan was not initiated so much by the elected political parties. It was initiated by General Ziaul Haq. So, if Pakistan wants to do something about its terrorist problems, it will be a long drawn out process, and it will have to start from the Pakistan state itself.
Experts warn that unless Pakistan dismantles the broader infrastructure of extremism and addresses radicalization at its roots, the country's internal instability could deepen further with wider implications for regional security.
Pakistan is facing renewed questions over its ability to maintain internal stability as terrorist attacks continue to escalate across its Northwestern region. The recent attacks in Sarai Naurang and Bannu have not only exposed security vulnerabilities but also intensified debate over the long-term consequences of Pakistan's policies toward terrorist groups. To discuss the worsening security situation and its geopolitical impact, we have with us Foreign Affairs Expert Robinder Sachdeva. Hello, sir. Welcome to Newsweek South Asia. So, my first question to you is, Pakistan has witnessed back-to-back terrorist attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa recently. How serious has the internal security situation become inside Pakistan today?
The security situation inside Pakistan is going from bad to worse. I think last year was the worst year in the last 10 years for Pakistan, 2024 I think, or 2025. And this year, the numbers are already tallying up to be even worse than the previous year. So you can say in the last 11 to 12 years, this has been the worst year for Pakistan in terms of its internal security on multiple geographic fronts, ranging from the northwest frontier, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, all the way down to Balochistan.
Pakistan continues to blame groups linked to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, whose presence is found in Afghanistan and also in Pakistan, for the violence. But how much of this crisis is actually the result of Islamabad's own long-standing policies toward terror groups?
What Pakistan is now reaping is a cliche, is what it has sown. Over the years, its policy, terrorism being one, but the other policy of strategic depth, which it wanted to cultivate in Afghanistan, due to which it supported the radicals there, the Taliban there. It was also playing a two-sided game with the Americans and NATO and the Taliban. On the one hand, hunting the hare and the hound, you could say, right? In the hope that, one, either the Americans would prevail, or if they do not prevail, the Taliban who come will be beholden to Pakistan, because Pakistan was giving them sanctuary in its frontier province areas. That they will be thankful to Pakistan, and therefore once they are in power, they would be very much malleable under what Pakistan wants, one. And secondly, it also cultivated or inspired, in a way you could say, the Tehreek-e-Taliban, which has now become an agent, you could say, or a vector which is eating away within Pakistan its own establishments.
How badly have these attacks damaged the credibility of Pakistan's military establishment, which has long projected itself as the guardian of national security?
There seems to be a contradiction about the military of Pakistan, the perception. On the one hand, the military of Pakistan, let's say General Munir, has crafted a smart game, let's say, in the international theater with respect to the Americans, the Iranians, and all of those, right? But on the other hand, the military within its own country, I think, is no longer being able to claim that it will protect all Pakistanis always. So that is a weakness which is emerging in terms of what Pakistan's military is, though its perception or the perception of its flag bearer, that is General Munir, is that he's a very able military leader. But if you look within the country, what's happening? They're not being able to maintain internal security and cohesion.
How much is Pakistan's economic crisis contributing to worsening radicalization and insecurity on the ground?
Pakistan has always looked to monetize its geography. Firstly with the Americans during the 80s to drive out the Soviets by telling Americans, okay, you can come, you can go through here to Afghanistan, bring us the money, bring us the funds, and we will radicalize the Afghanis, make them mujahideen, tell them to go to war against the godless communist Russians, Soviets. Started there. Then even with Taliban, America there, so Pakistan has been monetizing and earning money in a way, you could say, not in a way, exactly earning money through Afghanistan, etc., via the Americans. On the other hand, it has at China, the CPEC corridor. So Pakistan's military establishment has been rich, has been feudal. They have a Fauji foundation which has an annual turnover of I think around $30 billion, which runs anything from cinemas to construction companies to everything, to hotels and all. So the elite of Pakistan have lived in that bubble. The masses of Pakistan have been left to feud for themselves.
How do repeated terror attacks affect Pakistan's global image, especially when it tries to project itself as a responsible regional actor?
Terror attacks inside Pakistan do impact its global image in terms of that. Firstly, I think in terms of investments. Investors would normally not want to go where you have such incidents. But other than that, the world knows about Pakistan and its internal situation. So its image, it is trying to leverage from other aspects like right now by being a useful gun for hire for the Americans.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, sir.
My pleasure, please.
In a counter-infiltration success along the line of control, the Indian Army foiled an infiltration attempt by Pakistan-backed terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch sector. One infiltrator was killed as troops engaged heavily armed terrorists attempting to sneak into Indian territory under the cover of darkness. The operation once again highlights India's robust border security grit and raises fresh questions over Pakistan's continued use of terror infrastructure along the LOC.
The Indian Army thwarted a major infiltration attempt in the Krishna Ghati sector of Poonch's Mender area along the line of control. Alert troops detected suspicious movement near the Bicho post in the Mankot sector, an area frequently targeted by Pakistan-backed terror groups for infiltration attempts. According to defense sources, a group of heavily armed terrorists attempted to cross into Indian territory under the cover of darkness. As the troops challenged the infiltrators, the terrorists opened fire, triggering a fierce exchange of gunfire. The Indian troops responded swiftly and effectively, eliminating one infiltrator suspected to be linked to the Pakistan-based terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba. Security officials believe the remaining terrorists retreated back towards the Pakistani side of the LOC after facing strong resistance from the Indian forces.
So the current security situation along the line of control is quite stable and peaceful. But Pakistan Army is trying to destabilize it and using the terrorists by sending them across the LOC to create trouble in Jammu and Kashmir. The attempt at Poonch is not the only incident. Earlier also in Uri also they have tried this. Rajouri sector also tried it. In the IB sector also an infiltrator was killed. So therefore the design is as was being followed in the previous years. Because there is a window of opportunity. Moment the snow starts melting and the passes open, this window of opportunity is always exploited by the Pakistan Army to push in more and more terrorists. And of late there was news that almost 70 launch pads have been reactivated and about 800 terrorists are waiting to be sent across the LOC. So it fits into that pattern.
Additional troops have now been deployed across the sector while search and sanitization operations continue in the dense forested terrain to ensure that no infiltrators manage to sneak through the security grid. The army has intensified aerial surveillance using drones and advanced monitoring equipment to track any suspicious movement near the LOC. The latest incident comes amid repeated allegations by India that Pakistan continues to shelter, train and support terror groups operating against India. Despite international scrutiny and diplomatic pressure, infiltration bids along the LOC remain a recurring challenge for the Indian security forces. Over the years, Pakistan-based terror organizations including Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have been accused of orchestrating attacks in Jammu and Kashmir while using launch pads near the LOC to push terrorists into the Indian territory.
Pakistan continues to maintain or follow terrorism as an instrument of state policy. So therefore, Pakistan Army, in continuation of this policy, is dependent on the various Lashkars or the terrorist groups, and they treat them as strategic assets. So in order to keep these strategic assets active and happy, they try to use this window of opportunity of the snow melting to push them into Jammu and Kashmir or across the LOC.
Security experts believe the failed infiltration attempt underlines the desperation of Pakistan-backed terror handlers attempting to revive terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, even as India's counter-terror infrastructure continues to strengthen. In recent years, India has significantly upgraded border surveillance capabilities with thermal imagers, drones, smart fencing systems, and real-time intelligence coordination. These measures have sharply reduced infiltration attempts and strengthened operational dominance along the LOC. The Indian Army has repeatedly stated that any attempt to disrupt peace and stability in Jammu and Kashmir will be met with a firm response. Tuesday's operation once again demonstrated the effectiveness of India's multi-layered security strategy and the readiness of troops deployed in forward areas. As search operations continue in the region, security forces remain on high alert amid fears that Pakistan-based handlers may attempt further infiltration bids to destabilize the region.
Public anger is once again mounting in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as protests against Islamabad continue to intensify. The Joint Awami Action Committee has called for a major shutdown and demonstrations on June 9th, accusing the Pakistani establishment of broken promises, economic exploitation, and political suppression. With frustration growing over inflation, power shortages, and lack of rights, concerns are rising over a possible fresh confrontation between protesters and authorities. Take a look.
Public anger is mounting in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir after the Joint Awami Action Committee announced a territory-wide strike on June 9, accusing the Pakistani government of repeatedly betraying the people of the region. The committee has warned of massive protests, shuttered down strikes, and wheel jam demonstrations if demands are not addressed by May 31. JAAC leaders say Islamabad has failed to deliver on promises related to constitutional and electoral reforms and has instead used delaying tactics to suppress the movement. However, Pakistani authorities are now trying to pressure the committee into withdrawing the protest call amid fears of a larger anti-government uprising in the region.
जॉइंट अवामी एक्शन कमेटी के रहनुमाओं के साथ जो मुजफ्फराबाद में मीटिंग हुई है वो फ्लॉप है और ये कोई पहली दफा फ्लॉप नहीं हुई। ये पिछले 2 सालों से پاکستان کی سپانسرڈ پی او جے کے کی پپٹ حکومت جو ہے اس نے ایک ٹرک کی بتی بنائی ہے اور اس ٹرک کی بتی کے پیچھے جوائنٹ عوامی ایکشن کمیٹی بھاگتی ہے. یہ ان کو بلاتے ہیں مذاکرات کے نام پر، ان کا ٹائم ویسٹ کرتے ہیں، اور جوائنٹ عوامی ایکشن کمیٹی کی جو قیادت ہے اس نے بھی اب یہ فیصلہ کر لیا ہے کہ انف از انف، اور 9 جون کو بہت بڑی جو ہے ہڑتال اور لانگ مارچ کا پلان کیا جا رہا ہے. وہ ہوتی ہے یا نہیں ہوتی ہے یہ تو وقت ہی بتائے گا، لیکن یہ پلاننگ جاری ہے اور جگہ جگہ پورے پی او جے کے میں عوامی ایکشن کمیٹی جو ہے اس کے جو لوگ ہیں وہ بہت غصے میں ہیں.
The fresh protest call comes at a time when resentment against Pakistan's administration in POJK is intensifying over rising inflation, long power cuts, and lack of political representation.
بجلی کی شدید قلت ہے، لوڈ شیڈنگ ہوتی ہے بہت زیادہ. اس کے علاوہ اسکولوں کی جو بچوں کی فیسیں ہیں وہ بہت زیادہ ہو چکی ہیں. اس کے ساتھ ساتھ گیس کا جو سلنڈر ہے وہ بہت مہنگا ہو چکا ہے. مطلب ہے 2-2.5 ہزار کا سلنڈر تھا، اب 6 ہزار کے قریب پہنچ گیا ہے اس کی قیمت. اسی طرح سے پیٹرول بہت مہنگا ہے. اسی طرح سے جو الیکشن آ رہے ہیں جون میں، اس کے لیے ابھی تک جو مہاجروں کی سیٹیں ہیں 12، اس کے اوپر کوئی فیصلہ نہیں ہوا، کیونکہ جوائنٹ عوامی ایکشن کمیٹی کہتی ہے کہ یہ 12 سیٹیں مہاجروں کی ختم کریں. کیونکہ پہلی بات تو یہ ہے کہ یہ ان میں سے بہت سارے جو ہیں وہ رہتے ہی نہیں ہیں پی او جے کے میں، وہ صرف الیکشن کے لیے اپنے نام جمع کراتے ہیں.
Human rights activists allege that previous protest movements in POJK were met with force instead of dialogue. They claim peaceful demonstrators faced bullets and arrests while the Pakistani establishment continued changing political leadership without addressing core public grievances.
پی او جے کے لوگوں نے 2 دفعہ بہت بڑی جنرل سٹرائکس کی ہیں، لیکن سوائے گولی کے ان کو ابھی تک کچھ نہیں ملا، سوائے لاشوں کے ابھی تک کچھ نہیں اٹھایا گیا. اور پاکستان کی سرکار اور پی او جے کی سرکار جو ہے وہ اپنے وزیر اعظم چینج کرتی رہتی ہے اور جو ہے ٹالتی رہتی ہے، لیکن جو اصل مسئلہ ہے پی او جے کے کا اس کو ایڈریس نہیں کر رہی. تو مجھے ایسا لگ رہا ہے کہ آنے والا وقت جو ہے وہ پی او جے کے میں بھرپور مزاحمت کا وقت ہوگا.
With growing anger on the streets and allegations of repression by the Pakistani establishment, the region appears headed towards another major showdown between protesters and the administration in the coming days.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.